Hello and welcome to the second module of our growth hacking course. In this module, we'll be talking about websites and e-commerce. So in this module, what I'm hoping that you'll learn is how to build an effective website and to do so with confidence. And to show me that you've learned this, you get to create a website for your company. We're going to sketch out the key pages for our sites and then build the sites themselves. Over the next couple of videos, we're going to be talking about a website overview, how to make a great website. We're going to dive deep into e-commerce. We're going to talk about best practices for website design and user experience. And we're going to talk about some case studies, how to take a small business website from good to great. Now, this is the most technical week of the course, but you got this. There are some really great tools out there that make website building easier than you might imagine. And if I can leave you with some of these thoughts here, there's 10 things that require zero talent. Being on time, work ethic, effort, body language, energy, attitude, passion, being coachable, doing extra, and being prepared. None of these things here is technical competence with website building. You can create a great website. You don't have to have website talent or experience or skill to do that. We'll show you how. We'll get it done together. So before we dive too far into the websites and e-commerce, let's review some of the growth hacking concepts we learned in the last module. So what is marketing? Well, marketing is this. It's simply connecting your company with your customers. We talked about 3 different buckets within marketing. We have brand marketing, which talks about who you are. We have product marketing, which talks about what you sell. And we have growth marketing, kind of the crux of this entire course, which talks about how you sell it. So some of the elements of growth marketing. Growth marketing covers all the different ways you can grow your company. Its hallmarks are rapid experimentation and low-cost alternatives. You're building and engaging the entire user base, from people who are just hearing about you to people who are buying from you for the 5th time. And then growth marketing is so much about learning and improving and constant iteration. And in order to do that, you have to measure. This is the 6-step growth machine that goes in a loop. You start with brainstorming, then you hypothesize, then you prioritize your hypotheses and start testing them. Those tests will reveal data which you can analyze, and then use that analysis to iterate and improve on the next brainstorming stage. So that's an overview of growth hacking. Now let's do an overview of websites. So if you remember this slide from the previous module, this is the marketing landscape from beginning to end. And what does the website cover within this landscape? Well, your website touches every single component of the landscape, every single component of your marketing strategy. If you think about the digital marketing mix, we have earned, paid, and owned. And if you look closely at the owned circle, you'll see that website is one of the components. You fully own your website. You control all of it. But at the same time, paid and earned and many aspects of owned, they don't work without a website to point to. You need a website to point your pay-per-click ads to. You need a website to point your media coverage to. So the website underpins so much of your marketing strategy. Now let's talk about how to make a great website. You can boil it down to essentially 5 different steps. We have planning and research. We have user experience and user interface, UX and UI. The 3rd step, we have development. 4th is deployment. And 5th is analysis and improvement. I'll start at the beginning with planning and research. So as you're diving into planning and research mode, there's 4 questions you can ask yourself. What is our brand? What is our situation? What value do we provide? And how will we reach people? So here's the question on what is our brand. You can think about your company as almost like a person with its own personality. In this chart here, you can see there's spectrums with different brands on either end of the spectrum. Are you more Palantir? Are you more Google? Are you more Honda? Are you more Tesla? Even understanding and hearing those brand names, you can associate them with a different emotion, a different personality. So where does your company fall on these brand spectrums? As you're thinking through how to create your website, you can bring in some of that personality as you're building. You can do it with colors, font choices, copywriting, but make sure that your brand is represented on your website in the way that you want your brand to be out in the world. The second question talks about the situation. Well, what is the situation that your company is in? Who are your consumers? Who is your competition? What are the web design trends out in the market today? And do you have any liabilities? When you think through who your consumer is, are they of a younger demographic or an older demographic? That might affect the way that you create your website so that it's easily navigable based on your ideal customer. When you think of your competition, you may want a website that stands out from the crowd. Or you may want a website that checks all the boxes that your competitors are checking. When it comes to trends, what's trendy in web design today? There's a lot of web design that happens on mobile devices first, because so many people browse the web on mobile. It's useful to be aware of these trends. And then liabilities comes into play if you already have an existing site or existing assets at play, and you have to account for them in the web design process. The third question is value. What value do you provide through your website? Oftentimes it boils down to these three aspects. Are you delivering content? Are you sharing information? Are you trying to drive commerce? If your website is all about content, you're going to design it differently than if your website is all about driving people to buy. So think about the value that you want to express through your website for your company. Then the fourth question, how are you going to get people there? Well, that's a great question to ask and one we will answer in future modules. But real quickly, we can think of this in terms of search. Are people going to Google search and come to your website from search? Are they going to come to your site from hearing about you on social? Are you going to use display ads? Are you going to email links out to your CRM, your contacts, so they can come to your site? Are you going to do other paid media to drive traffic to your website? Where people come from, they bring experiences and context to your site. So it's useful to be aware of what your site is telling them. So this user research phase, it really helps us define our users' needs and wants. And to find out those users' needs and wants, we can look a couple different places. We can look quantitatively at the data. Google Analytics is a major data source that we will cover in the next module. And Hotjar. Hotjar is a really cool tool that helps you see people as they are experiencing your site. In this example here, they have a little pop-up question that comes up on the site. In other cases, you can see full user recordings of someone who's navigating through your website. Then a couple other favorite tools on the qualitative side. So you can ask questions of your visitors through Google surveys or Google Forms. Find out more about these folks in terms of their demographics, their behaviors, their likes, their dislikes, and create a website that speaks to them. So step 2 of making a great website is the user experience and the user interface. Now, when I think of user experience and user interface, there's a couple different distinctions between the two. So user experience is the actual experience of someone on your site. Does the site make sense to navigate? Are things logical from step to step? Is it clunky or is it smooth? And then user interface is the actual pixels that people interact with. It's a button here. It's a picture here. It's the way the page looks from the eye. So experience is someone actively using your site, hopefully in a way that makes sense. Then user interface is the beauty of the site, the pixels of the site itself. There's a few different components within UX and UI that are useful to consider as you're building your site. First, we have user flows. This is a big component of user experience. What is the ideal flow that you want someone to experience as they go through your site? It may be starting on a splash page, working to a sign-up page, then into the product itself. It could be coming in from a landing page, going to a shopping catalog, then going to a product page from there. Whatever you want that ideal user flow to look like, that's how you design your site. This will be really important to remember as you're doing your project in this module. Second is a sitemap. And a sitemap contains every single page there is on your site, and it nests them into some neat categories and columns like you see here in the picture. This is useful for information architecture, so you know that every page on your site has a meaning and a category and a purpose. And third is a wireframe. As you can see from this image, a wireframe is like a fuzzy grayscale view of your site. This is one of the last steps before you actually go in and build the site. As we're sketching out our pages together, wireframing is going to be a really useful tool for you. Oftentimes, wireframing takes the form of a pencil and paper, like you see in the picture here. You're basically just sketching out the layout of your site how you want it generally to look and feel, and then you go into the design phase. InVision and Whimsical. These are two great tools for wireframing. If you're going to be wireframing digitally for this module's project, I highly recommend InVision and Whimsical. Pen and paper work great too. Next is a mood board. A mood board helps collect the colors, the photography, the typography, all the different visual aspects of your site. Puts them on one board so you can get a general sense of the look and feel that you're going for with your website. Similar with design comps. These are comparable designs to what your website will become. This kind of gives all the stakeholders in the web design process a chance to look at what the site will feel like when it gets closer to completion and to sign off on it. So that covers UX and UI. Let's dive next into development. So with development, there's two halves. There's the back end and the front end. And so the back end of the site, this is some look at the top frameworks that are used in terms of back end technology for websites. You can see that PHP is way up there. If we zoom ahead, this is what it looked like just a couple years ago. So still PHP, very popular. ASP.NET, another back-end language, less popular but still up there. We'll come back to this slide. So ASP.NET is the little yellow triangle now. So much technology changes so quickly when it comes to these back-end frameworks. One thing to remember from this slide, PHP is the king. There's lots of different options. Then when it comes to front end, so this is what you actually see and experience on a website. The back end handles a lot of the data, the front end handles a lot of the experience. And there's generally three different coding languages that happen on the front end. We have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML is the structure of your page. I like to think of it as the framing on a construction house. So as you're building the house, you have the framing up. Then CSS comes in and applies the design. It applies the finishing touches, the carpet, the paint color, things like that. Then JavaScript is the action of the site. So it may be the way that a certain button interacts, or the way that a page scrolls, or something sticks to the top of your browser window. So HTML is the structure, CSS is the design, and JavaScript is the action. Now, a lot of websites use what's called a content management system. Squarespace is a form of that. Squarespace will be the software that we recommend for the project for this module. You can see Squarespace listed in this list here toward the bottom. WordPress is far and away the most popular CMS on the web. And the CMS just makes it easy for a non-technical person to collect and share a bunch of content quickly and easily. We'll use Squarespace. WordPress is another great option. So number 4 step of making a great website is the deployment. This one's a little more straightforward. So this is what the deployment process looks like as you're getting ready to launch your site. First and foremost, proofread it. Look for any copy mistakes, any broken links. Test it on all different browsers and devices. There's some variability based on whether you're on a mobile device, whether you're using Chrome or Safari. Make sure you check it everywhere. Search engine optimization. We have a whole different module just on this topic, but at this point, just know that search engine optimization is how your site looks when people find it on a Google result page. ADA compliance, this is for those with disabilities, and in this case, what it helps a lot with is, as you're looking at a page, is it easily accessible for a screen reader? Does it have all of the most popular accessibility features on it so that people with disabilities can still experience your site? SSL is security certification. So when you go to a site, does it say HTTPS across the top? Are all the certificates up to date and valid? This is important for how your site shows up in search, how comfortable people feel browsing your site. Make sure you train your team. They're comfortable knowing how to use and navigate your site. Then launch the site. Great step. Celebrate the site. Another great step. And then monitor the site. Make sure that it's working as you expected once it goes live. And the 5th and final step, analyze and improve. We have a whole module coming up next that's going to talk about how to analyze your website. So next step is e-commerce. I'll see you in the next video for a complete rundown of e-commerce.